All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about a principle from a book that really changed my life about 10 to 15 years ago. It was called Give and Take by Adam Grant. When I read this book, it really changed my whole perspective on how I view people. Originally, I had this paradigm that the world is all good, that everybody is good. And the reality of the situation was that paradigm helped me stay a generally good type of person. It helped me generally feel like it's okay to be kind to people. It's okay to be nice to people. It's okay to be very good. However, the problem with that paradigm is whenever I would encounter bad people, malicious people, people who are takers, I would get stopped. I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. I couldn't figure out what's motivating these people. Why are these particular coworkers? Why are these particular people in friends and family circles? Why are they getting away with certain things? And my paradigm kind of got flipped, and I couldn't quite understand why is it that certain people get away with things as bad people, but certain people who are good people don't get rewarded for good behavior. What's up with that, right? This is the the question that they always ask in the Bible. Why do bad things happen to good people, and why do good things happen to bad people? And it always messes with people who really come from these polars where you're either all good or all bad and there's no in between. But the reality of the situation is not everybody is good, not everybody is bad. Sometimes people are in between, and you often see this with world leaders. They're very much in it for self-interest or the interest of their own country. They're not here to be altruistic and humanitarian all across the board. That's just not the way humanity works. Most people, if they're really being honest with themselves, they're not trying to be some servant to all humanity, but they're really trying to serve themselves and better themselves, better their family, things of that nature. Now, we all have intrinsic motivations. What motivates you? What actually gets you out of bed? Is it actually serving 10,000 people, or is it the ability to better yourself and the ability to make something of yourself? If you're really being honest, most people, their motivation to get out of bed is so that they can make something of themselves. So when I read this book, it really provided this interesting perspective on a man that many people know as a US president, Abraham Lincoln. Many people remember him for certain things, such as abolishing slavery, the Civil War, getting shot and killed, right, for a cause. Many people remember him for that reason. But what the author of that book, Adam Grant, was really pitching and really trying to really unpack was the story of a giver, a taker, and a matcher. These are three different archetypes that you will see in pretty much the entire world. There are people who give. They genuinely like to give. They genuinely like to help people. They genuinely are more giving than they are taking. Then you also have the polar opposite. You have people who are takers. These are people who have their self-interest in mind. They're people who are strategic and opportunistic. They want something, they take it. Then they're also a category that's somewhere in between. And a lot of people fit into this category, and it's called the matcher. These are people who generally try to do good by people who do good by them, but at the same time, when it comes to takers, they're very guarded, they're very protected. Now, if you look at these three archetypes, people who have that idea, that paradigm that I was talking about, that I used to come from, that the world is all good. The problem with that paradigm is if you come from that paradigm that everybody is good, you'll run into people who are takers. And then it flips your paradigm up on its head, and you can't figure out what's going wrong because you're trying to rationalize, why did this person just take from me? Why did this person cheat me? Why did this person steal from me? Why did this person use me in this way? And it's hard to rationalize if you're a good person. when you encounter a taker, because it's like you've met a master manipulator. You don't understand what makes them tick. You don't understand how they got away with it. You don't understand. You feel very naive. You feel very gullible. And it sucks. I've been there. When I read this book, it really showed me who Abraham Lincoln was and how he was a giver and how he basically threw a gubernatorial election, one of the earlier elections in his career, so that the greater good could be accomplished. This man had a good majority of votes, and he also saw that the opponent he was up against was beating him in the election, but he knew that the opponent he was running up against, he knew that this person had the slight edge and that he couldn't win. And so he saw that there was a third party candidate who had very similar views to him in his primary, but the thing was, he realized that this person wouldn't win. So instead of him going head to head and trying to basically fight a losing battle, what he did was he took all of his endorsements and his political influence, and he endorsed that candidate who was basically set to lose, because they were more politically aligned, they were more values aligned, they were more intrinsically aligned. So he endorsed that guy. And then what ended up happening was that person who was very, very low in the votes, he was now able to amass just enough votes to win that gubernatorial election, become the governor. Now, later down the line, historians don't remember him for this. They don't look back at how he did things for the greater good to help win that race for that other person. And if the story ended there, we wouldn't even remember Abraham Lincoln. But what ended up happening later down the line, as the man named Abraham Lincoln would eventually become president, his cabinet was now stacked with people who he once ran against and was now able to pull into his party. So the thing that we also want to remember, why are we talking about givers, matchers, and takers? What does this have to do with Abraham Lincoln? There are times where you will have to sacrifice for the greater good. You'll have to make that altruistic effort. There are times where you have to be very much looking out for yourself, because in certain situations, there are takers. When they see blood, they will hunt for blood. They're out for blood. And so you have to be able to discern who are the givers, who are the takers. And when you read that book, it's very, very fascinating, because Adam Grant did such phenomenal research, and he very much tells the story how essentially at the bottom of the success tree are givers. These are people who just give, and they give, and they give, and they give until they're burned out. They're basically burning the wick at both ends. Then slightly above them in the success pool are matchers. Matchers are the people who they give when people give to them, but when they encounter takers, they protect themselves. They watch out. Then slightly above them on the success graph are takers. Takers are the ones who they take advantage of givers, and they also take advantage of the matchers. So they're winning from both pools, essentially, right? But the matchers are a little bit more protected. But if that's how the story ended, we would all be in a bad spot, because then that really does mean that the paradigm is that just take what you want and don't worry about the consequences, right? That's what that would lead you to believe, that there is no retribution, there is no justice, there is no divine justice in things. You don't reap what you sow in that case, right? But what Adam Grant actually made as the case is that he realized that it's not just the takers at the top, but there's actually a category, a strata right above them. And above them is that next level. And that next level is yet again the givers. So how can givers be at the bottom but also be at the top? What makes those givers at the top different from the givers at the bottom? And what he discovered was it's really those who are strategic with which areas to give, which areas to match, and in where they employ their boundaries. So the givers with the highest boundaries were able to not get burned out. They were also able to keep up the giving. They were able to match the matchers. And when they encountered takers, they had boundaries. And because of that, their goal was to impact society, was to change history, was to shift a culture. And because of that, they were at the top. So I want you to end this video by challenging you to really see which paradigm you're coming from. Are you coming from a paradigm where everybody is evil, and therefore I have to stay guarded and protected, and I have to match somebody's energy? Or are you looking at the world is all good and everything is, rainbows and unicorns everywhere, and so there's nobody ever taking advantage? Or is it somewhere where it's a cutthroat world and it's a dog-eat-dog world and I have to take what's mine, otherwise nobody's going to give it? Or do you actually get rewarded for good-natured behavior, for helping others, but keeping people in check, keeping people at arm's length when they are takers, when there is self-interest at heart, keeping those bad people away, rewarding those people that are good, and really keeping those boundaries strong? Are you keeping the big picture in mind, like Abraham Lincoln, right? Doing what's good for the greater good, being motivated by the greater good. How do we help society? How do we help change history? Because what he kept in mind was the greater good. It wasn't his ego. It wasn't about just conceding an election just to do the right thing, but he was looking at the greater good. And later, he was able to call in favors. When he became president, those people that he ran against, they were now in his board, in his cabinet. So you never know where things where the cards may fall later down the line. And one of the principles in that book was also when to strategically ask for help. Because the givers at the top, they do ask for help. They do call in favors. They do try to make things win-win for everybody. They're not just taking from people, they're not just burning out, but they do know how to call in favors when they need. They do know how to make requests, to make demands, to place demands on people, to do what's there for the greater good. I hope this video has helped you, and if it has, like, comment, subscribe, share, and let me know what you think in the next one. I will be talking even more on this topic, on this idea of reciprocity.